Now, there are shocking levels of bullying, racism and incompetence in the organisation that is meant to make sure that NHS nurses and midwives are safe to have around patients. That's according to a damning report out this morning.
Yeah, an inquiry into the Nursing and Midwifery Council has found what is described as a deeply dysfunctional culture. So the review describes how staff are struggling in an environment where poor judgment, toxic behaviours and paralysis is affecting decision-making.
Yeah, it says the Nursing and Midwifery Council is struggling with a backlog of more than 6,000 cases, many of which drag on for years.
One case involving allegations of sexual assaults and rape took 7 years before the nurse was struck off the register.
Well, we're joined now by Nazir, Afzal, who authored this report. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Shocking findings.
Depressing, absolutely. I mean, I didn't anticipate that that's what I would find, but these are the voices of the people who work there, the people that engage with the organisation. So I'm confident that what we found is the reality of the experience. And in fact, the NMC have accepted our findings and also our recommendations. You're right, it's dysfunctional is one way to say it. There are a lot of distressed staff who work there. The paralysis in decision-making is really telling. You just mentioned a moment ago, cases take years and years and years. And as a prosecutor, I couldn't justify any of these cases lasting as long as they do. And that means that good nurses are suffering because they may be facing minor misconduct or no misconduct, but it takes years for that to be resolved. And bad nurses are escaping sanctions because they're taking years and years as well. And that paralysis in decision-making is going to impact on patient safety, public safety more widely.
Absolutely. I mean, why was the review carried out? There must have been a sense that something was going wrong in the system.
This came from whistleblowers. So whistleblowers spoke up last autumn. But the sad thing, Sarah, is that there have been lots of reports about the NMC going back to 2008, talking about these types of experiences, and very little has changed. If anything, things have got worse because post-COVID, the backlogs got worse. And some of the examples you just mentioned, the rape case, which took 7 years to resolve, only resolved this year, with that individual being struck off. Another case involving a nurse that had Category A child sexual abuse images, which is the worst type of images. And the NMC decided that was in their private life and therefore not a matter for them. You know, as if somehow your private life ends the moment you're about to enter your workplace.
So what happened there?
They decided not to proceed.
At all?
They were left to the police to deal with, and if at some point that individual gets prosecuted, great, but they can carry on working as they always have done.
And do you know, people will be watching thinking, what's happened to that person?
Well, that's a matter for the NMC to deal with. We never got to that level of detail. But what we found is that's the regular occurrence, unfortunately. Until this year, lots have changed this year. So they brought in a new policy which says your private life is not your private life anymore. Well, it took 100 years to get there. They've brought in new processes to deal with the bullying and the racism and the incompetence. They've found £30 million to put at the front line, which will undoubtedly deal with the resourcing issues they have. But it's taken all this time and ultimately my review to get them to take some action.
I mean, you talk about the impact on patient safety, because if this is the culture of the sort of bad eggs, if you like, within the system which aren't being uncovered, there's huge implications there for patients who rely on them for care.
Well, do you know, somebody said to me, why would I want to be treated by a racist, for example? And a good example of that is black women are 4 times more likely to die in childbirth than white women. And the research is out there, it suggests that there may well be some racism that plays a part in that. Well, if the NMC is not in a position to deal with that because there are some racists within the NMC, well, that's a problem that needs to be addressed. So we spoke to lots of people who, I mean, you probably know, I've dealt with the most serious crimes that human beings have committed against each other.
As a prosecutor.
Yeah. And so I've seen the worst that humanity does to them. I've sat with some people who work at the NMC and they're broken. They're literally broken by what they're having to deal with, the trauma they're experiencing, the delays they're having to deal with. That's not on, and that will have to change. I understand it will change.
You seem to be hopeful that changes are being made. I just wonder, for confidence of the public and maybe confidence within nursing and midwifery, whether the NMC needs to be ripped up and they need to start again. Is that something you would recommend?
Well, no, I wouldn't. I mean, what I haven't mentioned is that 6 nurses in the last year have taken their lives whilst under investigation because of the length of time these cases take. All of that needs resolving. I'm confident the NMC can change. That said, John. This is not the only regulator. Ofsted, you remember last year, was under the microscope when one head teacher committed suicide. All regulators are in danger. We wouldn't have the infected blood scandal. We wouldn't have had Grenfell. We wouldn't have Hillsborough. We wouldn't have had the post office scandal. None of these things would happen if there was proper regulation in those areas. That's an issue for government.
You talk about nurses taking their lives. We've had an email in this morning from a registered nurse. I will not give her name, but she said that she tried to take her own life because of an issue of bullying that was being investigated. It went on for so long, and that when she eventually returned to the ward, having a meeting with manager, everybody ignored her. It was dreadful, the worst feeling ever, she said, because everybody knew. They just looked down at their computer screens. I was mortified. I didn't know how I was going to be dealt with it. Is that another thing? Not just that there are delays, but then the way staff are treated?
100%. You know, the nursing and midwifery make up 1% of our population, and people are scared to speak up. People, when they do speak up or when they share their experiences, or unfortunately face consequences, all of that needs resolution. And this is about shining a light. What the report does is shine a light on a situation where perhaps we've turned a blind eye. And my hope is that people like that individual you just mentioned will feel confident that they can now speak up about their experiences, and that the NHS and the NMC can address these issues in real time.
I just want to get your views in your role as former Chief Crown Prosecutor. Prisons and the issues in prisons have gone right to the top of the political agenda with the new government coming in. What have you made of what Sir Keir Starmer has said? Is the system broken?
Well, you know, obviously I worked with Sir Keir for 5 years. I know him well enough to know that he builds good teams, that he trusts the people around him to deliver. Delivery is really important to him. You know, when we had a massive issue, or we still do, around child sexual abuse, he put me in charge of a team, told me what resources do you need, make it happen, and we then deliver the highest conviction rate in British history. So I'm confident that he will build the right team around him. But the first thing to do, as you know, where Streeting is done, is accept there is a problem. So the NHS is broken, the criminal justice system is broken. These things, once you accept there's a problem, then you can remedy it. It's when you pretend that there isn't, which unfortunately has been the case for a long, long time, and nothing changes.
The early release of prisoners is something, though, that really worries a lot of people, members of the public.
I accept that, but until a couple of months ago, if you remember, the last government were telling judges and magistrates, please don't send anybody to prison because our prisons are full. So there is no solution. We've built 6,000 prison places in the last 10 years, when there's been an increase of 20,000 prisoners. We need more prison places, but we need to find a way to ensure that those prisoners who are not at risk are able to be rehabilitated in the community rather than sent to prison. Some of the Scandinavian countries have far, far fewer people in prison. They're not less safe.
Nazir, Afzal, thank you.